Hey everyone, excited to be back for this week's edition of Frequently Asked Questions for Commercial Real Estate. In today's video, what I want to do is comment on the NAR settlement that just came down, where they have settled on a commissions antitrust lawsuit for, believe, $418 million. So in today's video, we're going to explain how that will potentially affect the brokerage industry as a whole, and then we'll also focus on the commercial side and explain who will be most impacted, and if there's going to be any change involved in how we transact on a day-to-day basis. Now, before we dive into this video, I'd greatly appreciate it if you can like and subscribe to this channel. It really does help with the YouTube algorithm and ensures more and more people can hear this message and learn about the many facets of commercial real estate. So now you've done that, go and like and subscribe below. Let's go ahead and dive into this episode. All right. So as you guys are probably aware, and you may have been following this along in the news, NAR just recently settled an antitrust lawsuit regarding commissions, or really the way commissions are paid in the brokerage industry. And so what this legislation will essentially restrict, or the NAR is going to be forced to modify, is that within the MLS, they will no longer have a field, or brokers won't be able to advertise a cooperating commission. So as you guys are aware, or may not be aware if you guys are not in the business, historically the way that commissions have been paid is that the listing broker would negotiate with the seller a total commission. There's no set commission in any marketplace, but usually it's anywhere between, call it, 4 to 6% is kind of what you've seen historically. Had been negotiated based on deal size and just the negotiation skills of the listing agent with the seller. And oftentimes, once that fee is negotiated, the listing agent would then offer up a percentage of that, or to a buyer's or leasing agent as compensation for bringing a buyer or a tenant to that particular property. Now, what this will essentially do is that it will essentially restrict a listing agent from advertising that this particular cooperating commission is available for a buyer's agent or a leasing agent. So, what I think is obviously going to end up happening, and this is going to be very pronounced in the residential side in particular, that listing agents will no longer actively try to negotiate on behalf of the buyer's agent, and not necessarily from an agency standpoint. I'm saying more so related to the total commission that ultimately will be agreed to within a listing agreement. So instead of asking for 4%, 5%, 6%, in order to be more competitive with the broader landscape, the listing agent may say, okay, well, I'm willing to list the property for 3% or 2% of the total or the final sales price, and then will not offer any commission, cooperating commission, to a buyer's or leasing agent. And so I think the people who are most going to be affected on the residential side in particular are going to be buyer's agents. Obviously, they're going to have to negotiate with their own clients regarding their ability to pay for the commission. Along with that, first-time home buyers and newer investors who are not familiar with the process are also going to be affected, because they're essentially going to have issues with finding representation based on what they're able to pay, right? Because they may or may not be able to pay the fee for a buyer's agent. Therefore, they'll likely end up being a lot more dual agency situations where the listing agent represents both the buyer and the seller. And again, in those situations, the buyers are not going to be represented to the best of the ability as they would be with a agent that was dedicated just to their best interests. And so that's how it's going to be on the residential side. Now, on the commercial side, I don't foresee as much of a change. I do still see there's going to be a little bit of change that trickles over into the space. Unlike residential real estate, it's not uncommon in the commercial space to represent a buyer or a tenant, and you approach a landlord or a listing agent, and there's no cooperating commission. So we've already historically had to negotiate on our behalf in order to secure fees for our services. Now, depending on the type of clientele that you work with, buyers and tenants, oftentimes, if you bring them a good opportunity, many buyers and tenants have already expressed interest in paying a buyer or leasing agent commission. It's not uncommon for corporate entities or mid to large buyers to do that. So that in and of itself is already a way that many of us have operated in the space for quite some time. Now, I think where we're going to have, or people are going to have the biggest effect is if you work with mom and pop owners. They maybe own one or two properties, and they want to sell one of them. They may or may not be willing to offer a cooperating commission to the buyer's agent, and so if that's predominantly the work you do, you're going to see effect by it. Along with that, startups. If you work with a lot of startups, that's also going to be a problem because many startups do not have the capital to be able to pay a fee to their buyer's agent, or if they do have some capital, the willingness of them to spend some of that on representation may not be as strong as a more established entity. And so oftentimes what I think is going to end up happening is there's going to be a lot more dual agency situations, or the listing agent may say, hey, I'm representing the seller or the person who owns this property, and you as the business owner or mom and pop entity, you're on your own. I'm not representing you. We may be negotiating with each other, but in reality, I'm representing the owner, and I have no agency to you. So I think that will obviously affect the way that they're able to negotiate on their best behalf. Because again, if you don't do this on a day-to-day basis, there are definitely things that you may miss, or things that you are doing that you shouldn't be doing, and that could potentially hurt you in the long run. And so I think what the moral of the story is that going forward, if you're an agent, you need to start having conversations with your buyers and tenants about their willingness to sign a buyer's representation agreement or a tenant representation agreement, so that they understand that if for whatever reason the buyer or the seller or the landlord does not want to pay a cooperating commission, then they would obviously be responsible for covering that fee. I mean, these are types of conversations that you're likely already having, or you should already be having. But either way, that's going to become a much more prevalent thing going forward. I'm also interested to see, again, how this all plays out from an agency standpoint, because, again, as a licensed agent, you have a fiduciary responsibility to your clientele. But if they're unwilling to cooperate or pay for your fee, then obviously the agency relationship does not take hold. And what's going to happen going forward if owners and startups and other entities are unrepresented, and then obviously these the issues start to arise further down the line because they're just unaware of the dangers or the potential pitfalls of going through the process by themselves. So I think it's going to be an interesting thing to see. Moral of the story, I guess, based on this what I've been reading about, it seems like it's going to greatly affect the residential space and the way that business is operated. And on the commercial real estate side, I think it's just going to further enforce the fact that you need to be able to advocate to your best of your abilities on your own behalf. And hopefully, if you're able to do that, you'll be able to navigate these waters just fine. So hopefully you gained some value for this video. I would love to hear your feedback, because again, this is a very new update that is probably going to transpire, or it's going to progress over the next many years, and I'm interested to hear your guys' take on it. If you guys are watching this YouTube channel, please like and subscribe. It does make it an ability to reach our broader audience. We really want to be able to do that. So please like and subscribe. Along with that, if you guys are looking to buy, sell, or lease commercial property in Louisville, Kentucky, I'm an agent in town. I'd be happy to help you and represent you to be able to acquire and lease these types of properties. Feel free to call me at 502-536-7315, or you can reach me via email at raphael@crisantigroup.com. Thanks again so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.